And Hester is going to run it out past the 40 into Giants territory. He is going to go all the way. Touchdown, Chicago.
Trying to find somebody open and throws an interception. And it's Charles Woodson's 55th of his career.
Dives for the touchdown, San Francisco.
I want to play desperately, and I'm going to try to drive everyone nuts till they give me a shot.
Favre threw an almost impossible 336 career interceptions.
See that?
Yeah. We have here the Brett Favre interceptions calendar.
It's the lovable kicking bear doll. And guess what? It comes with its own goalpost. Isn't that neat?
Double doink.
Football fans, welcome back to Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear, Roast the Niner. It is week 7 of the NFL this week. Last week we had the trifecta. All 3 of our teams won. Currently we're watching Patriots-Jags. It's midway through the second quarter. Patriots on top 10-7 in London over the Jaguars. We've got some major matchups in football today. We have the Texans at Lambeau Field today against the Packers, promising to be a great game. The Chicago Bears will be playing next week, and the 49ers have the Chiefs at home today. So, Lord Uther probably didn't have a lot to talk about, but Gold Rush, what do we got? What do we got going on for your Niners this week? Let's hear a little bit about that.
Well, the big activation to the 53-man roster this week was their first-round draft pick, Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver. He found himself shot in the chest during an attempted brazen robbery just about 50 days before the season started. So the fact that he's managed to rehab from getting shot in the chest to likely seeing the field today, albeit probably in some limited action, maybe just some third down packages or something like that. That's pretty impressive. The reason that they are putting him on the field, however, is because Juwan Jennings is still nursing a hip that he suffered, hip injury from the Seattle showdown that they had on the Thursday night game a week ago. So the Chiefs are coming off a bye. Andy Reid has a very almost perfect record when the Chiefs have an extra week to prepare for their opponent. And since Kyle Shanahan took the reins as the current 49er head coach, and despite the recent success and in terms of winning records and achieving the playoffs and even making it to the big game, his record against the Chiefs has not been good. In fact, they may even be winless. So the odds are against him, right? They've got him at home. Weather's supposed to be good. The nation's eyes will turn to them as Fox. I don't know what other game of the week they have, but it'll be on a lot of television sets. The Chiefs are undefeated. The Niners are 3-3, still trying to work through some of these early season injuries and setbacks, with the exception of Juwan Jennings, who is not going to be active. Everybody else should be good to go. Trent Williams, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jordan Mason, after being out for a spell against the Seahawks. He has no injury designation. So it's going to be the Niners as we have come to see them, without Christian McCaffrey this season, versus the Chiefs, who again are 5-0 and coming off a Super Bowl victory and look as sharp as ever. So it will take an A-plus effort from the 49ers to beat them. As a super fan, I'm trying to use the analogy, which was actually on the road for them last year when they went back and faced the Eagles in Philly's turf after losing to them in the NFC title game the season before that. And they went and they thoroughly outplayed the Eagles in all facets of the game. And I think people were expecting, wow, it's at home for Philly and they beat them before. And the Niners just went out and took care of business and outclassed them. And it actually helped accelerate Philadelphia's calamitous collapse last season. I think they finished the season 1-6 last year and following that Niners loss. Because they beat him in every facet. It wasn't like a squeaker, last second Brock Purdy touchdown. They were beaten down and beaten down good. So, I mean, the optimist, I'd love to see the Niners come out and put that kind of performance on, but history suggests the Chiefs are a well-coached, balanced team on both offense and defense, and so I'm not fooling anybody. I think that it's, if the Niners have turnovers, if the Niners don't play, hustle and you're not going to stop Patrick Mahomes, but if you can limit some of the big playability and some of the, if you get your hands on him in the backfield, keep your hands on him. Don't let him rust away from you and convert that 3rd and 9 on it with his legs, when you're trying to get him to punt and get the ball back. We've talked about the Niners' woes on the red zone, in the red zone. That's going to have to improve, and they kind of improved a little bit on the 3rd down. They were keeping Seattle. They had the punting unit out there a few times and stymied them, but that effort's going to have to continue. So again, can the Niners win today? They sure can, but they're going to have to play a pretty solid game to do it. And they've had 10 days since that Thursday night, game against Seattle, in which they prevailed, 36-24. When the 49ers can put 30 on you, they're in a pretty good position to win. The games that they've lost this season have all been well below 30. They've scored 17 and 24 and 23. So if, Brock Purdy and the offense can find the end zone, we're on our 3rd kicker. We've had 2 kickers in back-to-back weeks contests try to make tackles and have injured themselves to the point that they can't play. So we're now on a former Green Bay Packers kicker, I think, Anders Carlson, maybe? I think that's his name.
Yep, Anders Carlson.
Anders Carlson will be in the red and gold at Levi Stadium today. So, again, I don't need a kicker. I don't need Brandon Aubrey, who is legit, folks. I mean, you may not think much of the Dallas Cowboys, and you shouldn't. But Brandon Aubrey can hit you a 67-yard field goal and still have about 10 or 15 yards of leg on it. Like, that guy is, a phenom. I don't need that. I need a guy who, when you need a 47-yard field goal to take, to break a tie, or to tie the game, or to extend your lead to a 2-possession game today, that's what I need. So give me a guy who's just automatic from 47 and further in, and if he's got length and you need it, and all of that, don't kick on these kickoffs. Put it in the end zone. Make them start at the 35 or whatever. Don't run the risk of your special teams breaking down and giving up a 98-yard kickoff return for a touchdown like we did against Seattle 10 days ago. So that's all. I'm forecasting, again, ever the optimist. I would like to see the Niners win. I think whoever comes up on top, it's probably a close game. Let's say 26-21. And I won't put an actual, a team in red, or a team that wears red / orange. Someone of those caliber will take the 26. But we'll say 26-21.
That's a pretty solid prediction. Lord Uther, you don't have Bears this week. What's going on in the Windy City?
I'm looking at real quick at San Francisco. So Purdy is the 2nd-ranked QB in the NFL. Then Jordan Mason is the 2nd-ranked running back. And then defensively, it looks like they're ranked 8th. I'm just 3-3. That whole conference, or is it conference, right? Yeah, it's just, I know you're in first place, but it's jam-packed. It could go any way, couldn't it?
Right. No, absolutely. You mean the NFC West, or you just mean the NFC? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the NFC West. NFC West.
Well, I mean, the Rams have struggled with injuries as well. I mean, Cooper Kupp and Pakua, they have not been able to find the secret sauce to at least stay at 500 or slightly above. The Cardinals, I think we've played them. I think Green Bay has played them. I don't know if the Bears have had them yet, but the Cardinals are like the NFC's Cleveland Browns in that Maybe 1 week they'll blow up your betting pool because you picked against them and then somehow they managed to score 45. But the Cardinals are who you think they are. The Rams are underperforming with injuries, and Seattle again, let's not forget the transition from Pete Carroll to Mike McDonald as the new coach. Like, they start off brisk, and I don't remember who their first 3 wins were against, but it seems like since then, including the New York Football Giants, who are no juggernaut, it seems like that the air is coming slowly out of the tires there. So if the Niners could just, get to their bye week. They have Kansas City at home this week. They have the Cowboys on Sunday night next week, and then they have a bye. If they somehow still were around 500, 4-4, let's say, and then Christian McCaffrey is due to come back for the first game. I think it's the Tampa game after the bye. If he's healthy and hitting the holes and everything else, then you make your November, December, everybody's relatively healthy and you take your chances there. But as of right now, we talked about this, I think, in our last little NFL video. There are better teams record-wise and playing better overall than the 49ers have through the first 6 weeks of the season. I tip my cap to the Packers, being in that echelon. The Detroit Lions have been strong. The entire NFC North right now is, from a record standpoint, is better than the Niners 3-3. So, but I mean, like I say, given everything that's happened, so forth, and God help us, if we get a Chiefs win today, then, that's great, but it's only as great until you have to face the Cowboys, who are going to be coming off a bye and who are plenty PO'd at how they've started the season. I think if you look at the Niners and the Cowboys, they're both 3-3, but it's a different 3-3. I think the Niners have let 2 division games against the Cardinals and the Rams just flat out get away from them. I mean, we talked about it, they had double-digit leads heading into the fourth quarter, and they just, through a combination of error and miscalculation and just effort, just let those games get away. I mean, we could be talking about a team that is, 5-1 right now, as opposed to 3-3. Whereas the Cowboys, in Big D, they've taken the field against the Saints and I think the Ravens, and I don't remember who thumped them last week convincingly, but I think they're 0-3 at home, and they're not like 0-3 like, a last-second field goal derailed us. They are Cleveland Browns, Carolina Panthers 0-3 at home right now, and they're still searching for it. And again, they have to go out to the West Coast and play at Levi Stadium next week, which has not been a fun place for them to play, recent history aside. So they're going to be keyed up, right? They're going to be like, they've had to listen to 2 weeks of, fire McCarthy, bench Dak, get rid of Jerry Jones. I mean, you hear enough of that, you just, it starts to make your blood boil.
Welcome to being a Bears fan, but yeah.
How much that plays out through the rest of the season after the byes and everything else, but clearly right now, they would have some work to do.
Well, here's our next 5 games. At the Commanders, at the Cardinals, home against the Patriots, home against the Packers, home against the Vikings. I could see.
That's 3-2. I mean,
I see 2-3.
Yeah, I was going to say 2 and 3.
Maybe even 1-4, but I see 2-3. Here's the thing.
Who are your?
Anyway, my brain power was overpowering everything there. Here are the Bears' next 8-ish game. Actually, I'm going to go next 9 games. I probably counted wrong, but that's why I don't teach math. We have the Commanders, at the Cardinals, home against the Patriots, home against the Packers, home against the Vikings, at the Lions, at the Niners, at the Vikings, and then we're home against Detroit. Those are our next, however many, what is that? It's 2, 4, 6, 8, next 9-ish games. We could go 3-6 in that span. So I think this is what. That's a tough schedule. You know what? And I know one of us on here is not a huge Minnesota fan and doesn't believe in them that much. I think they're playing lights out. I don't know how. Justin Jefferson's on a Jerry Rice type of season right now. I mean, he's looking that crazy good. Having Sam Darnold throw to him, which, let's all go back to and going back to my Brock Purdy comment. If Brock Purdy is on any other team, is he the second ranked QB in the NFL, at least for passing yards? Probably not. I mean, I think that's a system question in a sense, right? I mean, finally last week for the Bears, and like I was saying earlier when we dropped out for a second, I could have gone out with a couple of my friends at a Hutch football and beaten Jacksonville and Carolina. So I think we need to be a little measured, because if you're a good team or a great team, you should destroy those teams. The Bears measuring stick is literally going to happen over the next 9 games. Even before I looked at that, I was saying the next 5 games. Those are not easy games. Washington is playing well. They are. The Cardinals, like we said, and I'm a big believer when you're away, it's just that it's even tougher on you. Green Bay's playing well. The Vikings, the Bears have a very tough schedule finishing out the season. And it's going to be a test for Caleb Williams. Again, has he looked good? Yes. Do I still think he has those little intangibles? Yes. In Chicago, they're talking about, now Eberflus is this great coach. I really struggle with a lot of that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's scary. So I struggle with a lot of that. Again, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. Maybe I'm trying to be Ronnie Realist here, and I'm just making up all these names.
Ronnie Realist.
Ronnie Realist.
Ronnie Realist.
And Ronnie the Realist.
Hashtag right on your T-shirt right there. That's our next merch opportunity. Ronnie Realist.
Yes.
Quote by Lord Uther.
Yes. So I think it's going to be a tough. So if the Bears, finished in last place, it wouldn't surprise me. But I think this is a very tough division, which I wasn't really feeling that way at the beginning of the season. But it's probably one of the tougher divisions out there.
That's the best division in football. I tend to agree. I think the Bears have a really hard schedule in front of them, which is probably why they aren't going to make the playoffs this year, to be honest. Because I think you do have, I will say the 4 teams in the NFC North are the 4 probably best teams in football right now, outside of the Chiefs. I don't think I've seen, and I've watched a lot of the games this year, I don't think I've seen another team, with the exception of maybe the Texans, who has something this year. But the Houston Texans, who the Packers have today, they are a tough team. As long as C.J. Stroud is healthy. I don't know that he's playing at 100% right now, which might be how we beat them at Lambeau today, if our defense can exploit, his lack of tenure in the NFL. That's probably about it. I mean, we're going to have to play damn near perfect football to beat him today. I think we beat him. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think it's probably going to be like a 34-31, 34-27 type situation. But it's going to be a very tough game. Weather's going to be good. It's going to be warm in Lambeau, so we don't have a weather advantage. Although I went and saw the Texans play the Packers in Lambeau. It's been a while now, but they lost miserably in December in sub-zero temperatures. So I'm not taking the temperature advantage anyway, usually. But the Texans historically have played really well in Lambeau. So it's going to be a hard game today. But going to our future schedule, I'm looking at, next week we've got the Jaguars. That's going to probably be either a trap game or an easy game. I do think that team is probably better than they get credit for, so we got to watch our backs. But then we have the Lions. That'll be a tough game. Looking into that, we roll into the bye week, and then we've got the Bears after the bye in November, and we finish out the season, 49ers in Lambeau, Dolphins in Lambeau. Then we go to Detroit. And then we've got, who do we have that week? We go to Seattle, which I don't think will be that tough of a game, but it's never easy. Then we host the Saints 23rd of December. Then we finish up against the Vikings and the Bears. So, I mean, that's probably an easier schedule than what the Bears are looking at overall. It's not easy. It's probably a medium strength schedule, I would say. I would be fine with winning half of those games. You're looking at 11 games. We probably could win 6, maybe 7 of them if we're lucky, which puts us at 10 to 11 wins on the season, which is probably good enough for a wild card, if not winning the division. The division's going to be tough. We got to beat Detroit twice. We'll have to beat the Vikings at least once, and we'll have to probably beat the Bears twice. So I think we could probably beat the Bears. I think we probably can beat the Lions at least once. I think we're looking for vengeance against the Vikings. And I will say that the Vikings, I know they're 5-0. They are playing outstanding football, but they have looked beatable in every single game.
That's true.
They have won those games, I think, sometimes in spite of themselves. So about 3 of those games could have been losses. That being said, Justin Jefferson is on pace to have a fantastic year. And I hope he does. He deserves it. He's a great player. I think Minnesota's very lucky to have him. And that is catching passes from Sam Darnold, who would have thought that'd be the scenario we'd be looking at this year. It makes me wonder what they're going to do next year at quarterback. To be quite honest, are they going to keep Sam Darnold, or are they going to do the one-year wonder thing like they did with every other quarterback that's come through in the last 20 years and just cut him loose?
I read a rumor that they were going to give him $100 million guaranteed. It's what is a rumor I had read, and to your Justin Jefferson comment. Think about Calvin Johnson being stuck in Detroit for all those years. I'm truly wondering if Justin Jefferson wasn't having the season he is right now, if he would be considering at least asking to be moved out of there. If they weren't 5-0, I could see him saying, I got to get out of here, because Calvin Johnson, he retired way too early. But I remember seeing a video of him saying it the other day. He goes, I couldn't take getting hit another time. He was talking about one of the last games of the season before he retired and how he was just getting smacked around the entire game. And he goes, I'm not doing this anymore. Barry Sanders left for the same reason. And think about that too. So, I mean, Justin Jefferson, the Vikings are probably the upper echelon, or the executives are probably doing cartwheels every day because he's getting fed the ball all the time, and they're 5-0 in that division. And one more thing I want to throw out there real quick about the Bears' schedule. You want to be challenged. If for some reason they come out even at 500 or a winning percentage, I think that's a pretty good sign that they could make a run in the playoffs, or it's a great setup for next year. So to me, again, like we said before, anyone can beat the Jacksonvilles and the Carolinas. That's not your measuring stick. That doesn't help you figure out where you're weak. Playing these next 9 games, we're really going to figure out our weaknesses, which we already know is the offensive line, which everyone was saying has looked better. But again, look at who you're going against. You've got to factor that in all the time. So I think it's a good thing. You want to be challenged. That's when you find out who you are.
Absolutely. And I think that's why I'm happy with the medium strength schedule for the Packers, because we could come away with more than 6 or 7 wins. We could win out in December. We could win most of the month of November. Even if we drop 1 or 2 of the next games, we could come out on top of the division still. And that would be huge, because we'd have beaten 3 of the best teams in football multiple times, except for the Vikings, which was fine. If we do that, that is a Super Bowl caliber running team right there. When you're beating the 3 best teams in football just because they're in your division. Now you're going to end up having to play somebody again. I would say it's either going to be the Vikings or the Lions at some point in the playoffs, no matter how we make it in, if we make it in. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. So I think I'd rather see Minnesota in the playoffs, hopefully in Lambeau, than I would Detroit. But either way, I think it's exciting. I think we're moving into the best weeks of football. November, December football is real football.
Real quick, gentlemen, based on what you've seen this season of your teams, forget the past, forget what the prognostications say. How much of a deficit could either of your teams, our teams, overcome and still pull out a victory? How far down would you feel comfortable? Like, yeah, they can bounce back and win this game, or when is it out of reach? Like, I'll go first. I think the current Niners right now, minus McCaffrey and the various ins and outs of who's playing and so forth, I think a 10-point deficit is very overcomable. But if it's a 2-touchdown deficit, especially to an explosive team like the Chiefs, if we somehow fall down 14-0 or 21-7 or something, I'd have a hard time imagining or engineering some sort of comeback that would A, prevent Kansas City from continuing to score, and B, the Niners eventually shooting past them. So for me right now, the way that they're playing after 3-3, I think 10 points or less is something that I still am on the couch thinking, yeah, we can still do this. I can see scenarios to do this. But how much of a deficit do you feel right now currently your teams could overcome successfully, whether it's by halftime or the fourth quarter?
It's a good question.
14 for me, just because of our defense. It's the only reason why. Because our defense tends to generate points when we're in tough spots like that. So I would say 14. That's probably stretching it, but I'll go 14.
Okay.
I think 3 scores for the Packers. We've already done it once this year. And again, I just like the Bears, I think the defense is what's proved to be our strength in those situations. I think the offense, when we get behind 3 scores, it's because the offense hasn't found a rhythm yet. And the defense usually is what wins us back the momentum. And if we can establish a rhythm after that, we can typically come back. It's if we don't capitalize on a turnover or, a quick 3 and out or something that our defense has just handed us, especially if our defense scores and then we're not able to then score again afterwards when we get the ball back. Those have been the times where the morale seems to drop through the floor. But 3 scores is pretty damn good. I'm talking 17 points, 2 touchdowns and a field goal, not 21. 21 would be way harder, but I think our Achilles right now is the kicker, which seems weird because for years the kicker was the forgettable position on a football team. Maybe because we had Ryan Longwell for 15 years, and then we had Mason Crosby for 15 years, kind of like we had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. We tend to forget in Green Bay, we've had a lot of really good years with franchise players, not just quarterbacks. I go back to guys like William Henderson, who played for 14 years at fullback. We didn't need a fullback for forever, So that's, to me, it's just one of those things that I really look to the NFL and how they keep changing rules and plays and how the game works. It's odd how all of a sudden kickers have become so relevant, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I think it's good for the game because it keeps things interesting. I got to a point where I didn't give a crap who my fantasy kicker was because everybody was kicking a few extra points a game. You might miss 1 out of 4 field goals, 1 out of 3, whatever. It never made that big of a difference, but now it's really an impact on the game where being a kicker is kind of cool. If you're a good kicker like Aubrey, I mean, hell, I like watching that guy play and I hate the Cowboys. So, I think it's just good NFL. Like I said, we're entering the part of the season that is real NFL football. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure y'all out there are looking forward to it. If you want to follow all of the NFL action this season in a way you haven't before, keep up with Cut the Cheese, Poke the Bear, Roast the Niner by hitting that subscribe button. Click that like button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell because there's a lot of great stuff here at Pending Rebrand. We don't just talk football. We don't just talk sci-fi. We also talk propane and a bunch of other things. So hit us up. Drop us a comment. Who's your favorite team? What are they going to do today? And why are the Cowboys going to lose again this week, next week, and every week? Because I thought this was their year. Until next time, are you ready for more football?